What's up, friends and family of friends, friends who are also family? How's it going? It's been a while. Well, it's been, what, like 4 days? 4 days is not a while. It's long enough. It's long enough. Hang on. Can you see me? Or better? Hang on. Am I too bright now? No, I'm okay. I'm good. I look good. If I do say so. I do. I look awesome. I look good. Let's talk about Beowulf. Let's talk about Beowulf. I want to do two things tonight. I want to talk about Beowulf. I want to talk about Norse mythology. But I think my plan right now is to break it up into two separate videos. So let's go ahead and start with Beowulf. One quick reminder before we get started. All 4 of the first 4 quizzes are due in 2 days. This Saturday by midnight. And I've said it in emails, I've said it in videos. There will not be extensions for any of the first 4 quizzes because you have had 4 weeks to work on them. So don't come to me and ask me for an extension unless your leg's falling off or something, because I'm not going to give it to you. So no extensions. Let's get them all done. Get all of our quizzes done by Saturday. This coming Saturday. Let's do that. Let's get it out of the way. Get it done. And not have to worry about it anymore. How about that? All right. Let's do Beowulf. So this is, alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio, a man of infinite jest, something. I don't remember. Anyway, so I also don't remember why I have Hamlet up here. Oh, I know now. I'll go. Okay, I know why I have Hamlet up here, because of where Beowulf comes from, right? Because Beowulf is a Yeet from Daneland, and Hamlet also was Danish. Here are some pictures of barrow graves. In our myth, they talk about barrow graves, which are just tombs, which are just burial mounds. What's interesting here about some of these pictures, not these pictures in particular, but these pictures I took myself with my camera. 2015. Is it 2015? 2016. Doesn't matter. 2013. Whatever. My wife and I went to Ireland for our 10-year anniversary, and we went to here, Newgrange in Ireland. This is a huge burial mound, and it's really cool. The way that I don't know how they did this, but they were able to sculpt and cut the rock and arrange the rock in one very precise, particular way that on a certain day every year, like clockwork, by routine, the sunlight shines in on a particular stone inside the mound itself, right? I don't know how they calculated that to work, but it's on one of the solstices. I don't remember which one. But it works. It's really cool. And then we have some ancient spiral sigils here, symbols. Very old shapes. There is my lovely wife standing in front of this burial mound. You can see how large it is. If we go back, you can see just how... So that's the entrance right there. It's huge, this thing. It's my wife again. Okay, so that's the look from the entrance, looking out from the entrance at the countryside. And my wife is a strange person. The thing that she was the most excited for in Ireland were the sheep. So we had to take a picture in front of a sheep sign telling us that there were sheep around. All right, I don't have this open yet. Hang on. Beowulf. Oh, there's Sigurd. Man, I'm really disappointed that we didn't get to do Sigurd. That's an awesome story. It's a little on the longer side, and we don't have time. This semester goes so fast. But if you have the chance to read Sigurd the Volsung, it's awesome. It's really cool. It's very familiar. You would recognize a lot in it. Again, it's very Tolkien, but it's really interesting. All right, so the Danes, the Yeats, and the monsters. So the Mead Hall being ransacked belongs to Hrothgar, king of the Ring Danes in Denmark. So here's Herod. There's Herod right there. That's the name of the Mead Hall, the lodge, right, the house. Beowulf and crew come from the land of the Yeats, or Sweden, up here. So we have the Yeats coming down to the Danes, or the Utes, to help them. Grendel and his mother comes from the moors, or the marshlands of the peninsula. So down here a little bit, where they come from. And then, of course, you have Mr. T flinging alligators out of swamps because, what else would you expect Mr. T to do? Hopefully, I'm not dating myself, and a number of you don't know who Mr. T is, because God forbid, I don't want to get angry tonight, but it's been known to happen. Let's move on. So this was written around 1000 CE by an unknown English Christian author. It was discovered about 600 years after it was written. It's considered to be the oldest recorded English text still intact, still in one piece that we have. This is considered to be the oldest example that we know of. It's set in post-classical Scandinavia, which is Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland. You can see very interesting script here. It's almost English, right? It's almost legible. We can almost read that. Sorry. Sorry. Like I can see under. I can see what is in there. God, well, there's a lot of old language in there, but it's close. It's close. So, meaningful vocabulary that we have. Word, or unalterable fate. This is destiny. This is your, what will happen to you. You can't change it. It will happen. Mead Hall is that gathering place to drink, that lodge that Hrothgar has. Wargild is compensation. If someone dies, if a soldier dies, then a king or queen would pay his family compensation, insurance, I don't know, kind of insurance for loss of life. And then Herod is the name of Hrothgar's Mead Hall. It means Hall of the Stag. So what is a stag? Is a stag specifically a deer, or can a stag be other types of split knuckle, split hoof creatures? I don't know. I think that's an elk of some form or other. I think it just looks cool. I don't know. So honor. The primary virtues in Scandinavian culture were courage and skill, battle prowess, and loyalty. Now look at this. Memory is the only immortality. Think back to Gilgamesh. What was Gilgamesh trying to do on his big adventure? He was trying to become immortal. He was trying to solve the mystery of death, and he didn't do it. He couldn't do it because he wasn't a god. Here, the Danes and the Yeats and the Scandinavians understand that already. They know that there is no living forever, and they know that the only way that someone can exist beyond their own death is through memory, is through works, is through songs, is through legends, is through tales, is through memory. And then last down here. So, to let one's king die without help is a crime without pardon. So, fealty to the king, devotion to the king or queen, protection of the queen or king because of all the things the king and queen provides to the regular people. To let one's king or queen die without help is a crime without pardon. We see this in the myth. At the end of the myth, something like this happens. And wait, that's King Arthur. Hang on. Why can't I remember? Wiglaf. I knew it was a W. I was thinking like Wigard. No, it was Wiglaf. Wiglaf calls him out. Wiglaf calls out his fellow soldiers and says, "Hey, y'all screwed up because Beowulf died and you didn't do nothing to help. So that's a crime without pardon. Here's Beowulf holding a folding chair. This is from a game of some sort. It looks like Skullgirls, but I don't think there's any dudes in Skullgirls. So I don't know what game this is from. But Beowulf has a folding chair here, and that somehow makes all the sense. So weapons. So talk about the hero's journey a little bit. Gilgamesh had his own special weapon, right? It was the might of heroism. Gilgamesh doesn't have a named weapon, right? When he fights against Grendel, he uses his own bare hands because he thinks it'll be more fair. Turns out it's not, because Grendel's a kind of a wuss. He does go down into Grendel Mother's lair and find some weapons there. But he doesn't have an Excalibur. He doesn't have a Mjolnir, right? He relies on his own strength more than some of the other heroes. Burial practices. So these are the burial graves I showed you at the beginning. Some people were buried with their valuables in massive mounds of stone. Cremation was becoming more common as the body was seen as a vessel for the spirit. So if you destroy the vessel, if you destroy the body, then the spirit is free. The spirit can escape. And we see this myth practiced in this. We see this practice performed in this myth at the very end when Beowulf dies. They set him alight in a burial grave. Do we know where this gift is from? Do we know where this picture is from? You do, right? It's Star Wars. It's Luke watching Vader burn at the end of Return of the Jedi. Of course we all knew that. Okay, so there's some interesting vocabulary here we need to remember here. There's some really cool words. Last time in Medea, Euripides did this as well. Maybe not to this extent, but keening words. Well, I'll get to keening words in alliteration. We know what alliteration is. It's the repetition of consonant sounds. Like Poe does this a lot. Joyless giant, gold gleaming, Satan slayer of souls, grim and greedy. If you look for that in the myth, you'll see it a lot. And why is that there? Well, it's there because this is an epic poem, right? It was meant to be read aloud, and this alliteration was a device that the writers and the speakers used to help memory, to help them memorize things, and also to help the audience remember the story as well. Assonance is the opposite of alliteration. It's repetition of vowel sounds. So light the fire, depressed and restless, go mow the lawn. That's for me. And then keening words. I like keening words. Keening words are really cool. They're creative, descriptive phrases used in place of simple nouns. There was some of this in Medea. If you go back and look for a few, there are some of these in there. But and the Iliad too. Some in the Iliad as well. But the Orsted is the ship. The whale road is the sea. I love that one. The whale road. Heaven's jewel is the sun. And we even have some of our modern words that started out in this way, like bedroom, room for the bed, handmade, made by hand, sometimes, that have just kind of developed into normal speech over the years. So who are our main characters? We have Beowulf, hero of the Yeats. He's a great swimmer, we know. He has a really good grip, very strong, very noble, and he defeats Grendel and his mother. King of the Yeats. I should say King of the Yeats. Yeah. So eventually Beowulf becomes King of the Yeats. He proves himself enough that everyone follows him. And he rules for 50 years once that happens. And one noble thing that we know about him is that he will never send men into battle without also going himself. The first villain that we have is Grendel. Hrothgar calls him a joyless giant. He's an outcast. The myth talks about him being of the race of Cain, and that is, as we know, the biblical Cain, which means that he is what is that word? He not original sin. He is what is that? The phrase where you're damned from from the beginning. There's a word or a phrase for that. I'm just now realizing look how small this dude's legs are. Like little tiny legs and big arms and a big torso, but like, what are these little tiny legs? That's weird. Anyway, the humans partying and throwing, having a good time really bothers Grendel, and that's what initiates him to go and start eating people. He devours 30 at a time. Hrothgar's warriors are not very strong. They're not much of a match here. He is magical, meaning that normal weapons can't harm him. But eventually he comes up against Beowulf and he loses the farm, or rather his arm farm. Grendel's mother is initially underestimated because she's female. I'll read you that when we get to it. I think it's an interesting little line. It's the same line that in the Enuma Elish, Marduk was talking about Tiamat. And he was saying, well, she's just a lady monster. She can't be that horrible and vicious. She's just a lady. It's the same sentiment here. Grendel's mother is stronger than her son. She only kills one warrior, but it happens to be Hrothgar's closest friend. She lives underwater in the Lake of Monsters. Great name. And she, like her son, is immune to normal weapons, but not magical ones, which she keeps near her bed for some unknown reason. So, I want to talk about the religion here a little bit in Beowulf. Up to this point, we have had, by and large, polytheistic religions. We've had, Enuma Elish had multiple gods. Egypt had multiple gods. The creation of the universe in Ife has multiple gods. Bomba kind of did the origin of life and fire. The Iliad definitely did, right? The Greek myth definitely did. Medea definitely did. And now we're at Beowulf. And Beowulf doesn't. The religion in Beowulf is monotheistic. When the characters in this myth refer to God, they're referring to the one and only God. That's a big shift. That's a big change. But what's interesting here, and I think I have a question about this in here, but there are crumbs, there are elements in this myth, actually even the version that we have, the summary version that we have of Donna Rosenberg, there are echoes, there are hints to that religion that was before. The previous religion before Christianity came in and took over. So I'll call attention to those when we find them. Many modern-day religions are monotheistic. Most of the major ones today are Christianity, Judaism, Islam. And I say most, I shouldn't say most, I should say some. Some world religions are characterized by polytheism. Hinduism is kind of, well, no, Hinduism definitely is polytheistic and pantheistic. Wicca, Shintoism. All right, so we have some of the smaller religions. Well, Hinduism is definitely not a small religion, but some of the other smaller religions are still, they have a polytheistic perception of reality. All right. So Beowulf has his journey, his hero's journey, like some of our other heroes. He goes through steps. Let's see here. So, call to adventure, Hrothgar. Hrothgar says, please come help us. We have a monster and he's killing us. When he crosses the threshold, that could be Beowulf descending into the Lake of Monsters, right? He is moving from an area of safety into an area of danger. He has helpers. He has a couple soldiers to help him along the way. He doesn't really experience a death and rebirth, but there is a symbolic death and rebirth. If you go into, basically, if you cross over into the land of the monsters or the land of the dead and then come back, that can be considered a death and rebirth, right? A kind of a metaphorical death. Okay. All right, let's see what kind of questions I have on here. Burial practices. So look at this. Listen to this. Burial practices. When the time came for such a king to die, his soul made the journey to God, and it remained in peace there forever. That king's war comrades honored him. Their hearts flooded with a surging sea swell of love as they carried his corpse down to the seashore, and they brought his body aboard a ring-proud, sea-ready ship that was moored in the ice-cold sea flood. They placed their dead king, their beloved ring-giver, against the mast. They surrounded him with treasure trove. And all these went over the last journey. Blah, blah, blah. They launched the broad-beamed boat upon the deep waters of the railroad to wander where it would. Long after the ring-proud ship was out of sight, its golden banner waved high above the sea waters. So we get kind of a description of just one type of burial practice there, right? At the end of this myth, Beowulf has a different kind of burial practice. This question, I wanted to call attention to the difference, the polar opposites between Hrothgar's setting and Grendel's setting. Grendel lives in the forest. Grendel lives where the monsters are. He lives in the wild, the savage lands. And Hrothgar lives in civilization with people and food and drink and beer and war and gold and shiny things. So one possible way to read this myth is a struggle between civilization and the wild. Beowulf would represent civilization or humanity. Grendel and Grendel's mother and the dragon would represent the wild, the untamed savageness of nature. And I mean, we know how it turned out. Mankind overcomes that nature. But it's interesting if you look at the myth that way, it brings up a different perspective. So Grendel, like I said, it was descended from the race of Cain. So this pretty much says that he is beyond hope, right? He cannot be saved. He's a horrible monster. There is no chance of him. There's no hope for him. He's always just a horrible monster and always will be. There we go. Yes. Okay, so listen to this. Listen to this. I think this is fascinating. Grendel's ravenous appetite for human flesh drove him to wage war against all the Dane folk. For the frightful fiend valued neither gold nor treasure, and so great was his power that he feared no form of retribution or no avenging death. And so it came to pass that the Dane folk gathered in their heathen temples. Okay, heathen temples. Okay. And there they offered sacrifices to their idols and prayers to Satan, the slayer of souls. They did not know that they were neglecting the Lord of heaven, nor did they know that their salvation would never come from hell. What does that say? That is fascinating to me. That's my favorite line in the whole myth. What that says to me is that the writer of this myth, now remember, this was written, it was discovered about 600 years after it was written. It was written at a time when Christianity was spreading out and converting people, earning converts, and sending out missionaries. What that line says to me here is that the writer of this myth viewed the religious practices of the people who lived in this area before Christianity came as evil, as wrong, as Satan, as they were worshiping Satan, they were dedicating themselves to evil. Do I think that? I don't know if I think that. I don't know if I think that. What would make more sense to me, what seems more reasonable to me, is that you had a group of people with their own culture and their own civilization and their own religion in an area. And then outside forces came in. They were converted to Christianity, either through willingness or force or whatever. They were converted to Christianity, and then the writer of this myth tried to portray the previous religion as wrong and Christianity as correct. Do I think that the previous culture had a god named Satan, slayer of souls? No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I believe that the Christian writer who wrote this myth referred to that previous god or gods as Satan, as wrong, because in his eyes, her eyes, it would have been wrong, right? There's only one true God. It's God, Jesus, the Lord of heaven. Therefore, all other gods are false. So, I think that's fascinating here. I don't believe that the Dane folk were sacrificing and praying to Satan. I don't believe that they were neglecting the Lord of heaven, right? Because to them, they were praying to the Lord of heaven. They were praying to their Lord of heaven, who they believed in. And they didn't even know that they were neglecting someone else. They were supposed to be praying to someone else. Anyway, I like to bring that up. We'll talk about it again when we get to the Inca mythology, but we need to remember that, what is that phrase? The winners write the textbooks. The winners write the textbooks. So we don't know. We can't ask that previous culture what they believed in, because it's been written away, right? All right. Word. Okay, so let's talk about word. Hang on. It's hot in here. Hold on. Hot. It's November and it's hot. What kind of sense does that make? Let's talk about word. Word is fate. Word is destiny. Where is it here? Shoot. See, in Medea, I had these things already marked up for you, and now I'm just failing. I'm just wasting your time here. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Word is described as inescapable. You cannot get away from it. You cannot change it. It will happen. And that's it. And you know what? I talked about prophecy stories. I talked about those. I don't like prophecy stories. But this conception of word, of fate here is very much in line with most of those prophecy stories. Try as you might, do what you want to do, but ultimately it will happen. You can't change it. Rothgar talks about Beowulf. I knew Beowulf when he was a child. His kinfolk and I are hearth friends. Hearth friends. So a warrior's reputation in this culture, like we talked about, wow. Okay, here. Courage and skill in battle and loyalty. So if you are courageous, if you're brave, if you are adept in battle, if you're a very good soldier, if you're loyal to your king or queen, then you have very high regard. People appreciate you and love you for that. How important is one's family versus his battle exploits? I had this question in here because we had, in a regular class, we would have talked about King Arthur before this myth, and the status of a knight's family is a very important thing. In Beowulf, it's much less so. It's not as much who your family is or where you come from. It's much more your own acts, your own doing, your own glory. All right. Come on. There's David Hasselhoff. I think that's the SpongeBob movie. The first one. So Beowulf describes his adventure swimming in the ocean, and he explains his survival from word. So let's talk about this. 392, halfway down. Yeah. I have never heard of a harder fight at night, or of a man in worse trouble in the surging swells of the sea flood. But when the waves subsided, I could see the headlands and the wind-swept walls of the fins, and it came to pass that the swollen sea flood swept me to their land. So word often spares a man who is not marked for death that dreaded destiny if he is bold-hearted. That's interesting. He is saying that if you are marked for death, then that's it, you're done. Think back to the Iliad, when Hector was fighting Achilles, and he realized that it was his time, that he was not going to come out of this fight, and he made peace with that. There was no changing that. It's very similar here. If you are marked for death, then you cannot avoid it. If you are not marked for death, however, and you are in a difficult, dangerous situation, so long as you are, quote, bold-hearted, you may survive. Word may deliver you from that danger if you are courageous in that situation. So, Beowulf agrees to help Hrothgar, comes to Heorot, parties a little bit. There's a lot of partying going on at Heorot. And they all go to sleep, and Grendel comes at night, as he normally does, and Beowulf sees him. Beowulf knows that Grendel's there, but he doesn't act right away. And while he's just watching Grendel walks up and just straight up eats a dude. Let's see here. Then Beowulf lay down, awake and alert, watching and waiting. He was anxious for the battle to start, for his heart flooded with a surging sea swell of anger towards his foe, that monstrous man-eater. And so the frightful fiend angrily placed his hands upon the great door of the high, horn-gabled hall and pushed against it. And quick as the wind, the door gave way. Its fastenings had been forged in fire, but they could not hold beneath Grendel's savage strength. Grendel comes in and silent and still, Beowulf watched as Grendel set about his beastly business, alliteration. He watched as this monstrous man-eater suddenly seized one of his own sleeping war comrades, tore the man's body to pieces, and then bit into his flesh and chewed through his bones. So, Beowulf, Grendel done ate one of your dudes. Grendel just tore up one of your dudes, and you just watching him. What are you doing? Do something. Get up and stop him. So there's a big battle. Grendel, like I said, remember. Well, there's a couple of reasons, right? There's a couple of reasons why Beowulf doesn't use any weapons. One, he thinks that the fight won't be fair if he uses weapons. He's just too powerful and too awesome and too strong that if he uses a weapon, the battle will be over too quickly and it won't be any fun. The other reason is that Beowulf knows that Grendel is impervious to weaponry. That Grendel cannot be harmed by normal weapons. So he instead chooses to fight with his bare hands. Like bear hug style. Like Zangief and Street Fighter doing atomic pile drivers, 360 atomic pile drivers. You know, you spin the joystick and you hit the A button, but you have to be right next to him. You know, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so they have a big fight. Grendel loses, and Grendel doesn't die, but Beowulf is able to tear off his arm, just completely sever it from his body. Grendel says, "Oh dear, I may be outmatched here," and runs off. So after the battle, so think about immortality, right? So back a few slides, I said that people of the time, the Danes and the Yeats and the Finns and everyone else, understand that immortality is not achievable for normal people. So the only way that they can live past their death is through song, is through legend, is through tale, is through poems, is through story, is through theater, right? Memory. And we see that beginning to happen here in this myth. Right after the battle with Grendel, on page 395, during the feast, it says, Hrothgar's bard. What is a bard? A bard is a storyteller, is a singer, is an entertainer. Hrothgar's bard, who knew many an age-old saga, was already skillfully weaving a war tale of Beowulf's bold heart and strength in strife. He compared Beowulf to Sigurd the Volsung, who had slain a frightful fire serpent and won its hoard heap of golden treasures. So already, Beowulf's legend is starting to form. And then Hrothgar and his gentle-mannered queen rose to seek the night's rest. After the feast, Hrothgar gave Beowulf a rich array of gifts. A great treasure sword, an embroidered war banner, 8 golden bridled horses, an age-old jeweled saddle that had once been the war seat of a high king. The treasure-giving war king also gave gifts to Beowulf's bold-hearted comrades. And the king gave Beowulf Wergild to give to the family of the man who was eaten by Grendel. So Wergild, again, was that compensation for loss of life. Hrothgar knows that he has to pay that soldier's family, and so he does. So the Danes aren't too concerned about Grendel's mother at first. Yes. The Bright Danes, they comforted their minds with the fact that this giant, mighty as she appeared to be, could not harm them. For she was a woman, and women were much weaker, more fearful, and far less fierce in fighting than any man. Than any man, of course. I mean, they didn't have MMA back then. They didn't have Ronda Rousey to show them that they were terribly wrong. But anyway, she was a woman. She was much weaker and more fearful, right? Okay. All right. Well, I would hazard a guess. I would say that any one of those warriors, with the exception of Beowulf, goes up against Grendel's mother, they're going to have a bad time. Grendel's mother. So Grendel makes his way back to his mother, and Grendel's mother gets really... She freaks out because her son has been injured. And so she goes to Heorot, and she retrieves his arm, and she kills someone on her way out. Who does she kill here? At last, clutching the man's corpse... So the mighty mother seized only one warrior, the closest Dane. She held him in a grasp that was stronger than the storm wind, and then she bit into his flesh with her frightful teeth, giving him a gruesome death wound. So, who is that Dane that she kills, the random Dane? Well, for the death-doomed Dane had been Beowulf's beloved hearth friend, his most trusted counselor, and his bold-hearted war comrade, and he was a far-famed warrior. So it was Beowulf's best friend that Grendel's mother kills. Probably not a good idea. So this is one of those keening words I talked about. Unlock his word hoard. You'll see this several times in Beowulf. And all it means is just about to give a speech. They have a lot to say. They have a lot on their mind and they want to tell you. So they unlock their word hoard and spill it out. Listen to this. Listen to this. This is it. This is fascinating. Listen to this. So the old treasure-giving war king spoke, and to his word hoard Beowulf replied. So this is Beowulf talking now. You are a wise king, my lord, and so put aside your sorrow. It is better to avenge the death... I'm sorry. Hold on. Backtrack. The one Dane that Grendel's mother kills is not Beowulf's best friend. It's Hrothgar's best friend and counselor. It's Hrothgar's best friend. You are a wise king, my lord, and so put aside your sorrow. It is better to avenge the death of your friend than to mourn overlong for him. Word always weaves as it must, and soon or late death, that dreaded destiny, takes the life of every man. So the warrior who can should win honor and glory before death takes his life. Then when his life comes to an end, his good name will live on after him. So Beowulf says, stop mourning. Stop weeping. Stop missing this person. Go make it right. Go slay that monster that killed him. That's what we should be doing. I love this gif. I love this gif because it's Andre the Giant, and he was awesome. And I also love the gif. If you know anything about Andre the Giant, you know that he was like 9 feet tall. Okay, not really 9 feet tall. He was just a giant. He was a monster, just a mountain of a man. And he had a short stint as a wrestler, but he's acting so afraid here. And that's ridiculous because he's a mountain of a man. Who is he afraid of? Who is he afraid of here? Come on. It's Andre. Okay, anyway. All right. So Beowulf goes. Beowulf goes to kill Grendel's mother. He goes to the Lake of Monsters. He descends into the Lake of Monsters with his train car-sized lungs, right? He can breathe forever, apparently. Goes under the lake, finds a cave where Grendel's mother is staying, and he finds a sword. No, I'm sorry. He was given a sword by someone at Herat. He was given a sword by... I don't remember his name. There's a little wiener measuring contest between Beowulf and another Dane. And after Beowulf proves his worth, proves his prowess, his battle courage and whatever, this Dane that he was arguing with before gives him Hrunting, this sword, for him to use. So he takes that with him to kill Grendel's mother, and he uses it, and it breaks immediately because she's immune to that. She can't be killed by normal weapons. So instead, let's see here. Beowulf raised Hrunting, Unferth. Unferth was his name. Shame on me. Unferth's sharp-bladed battle sword. And he smashed the mighty mother upon her head with such strength that the blood-hardened blade sang its greedy war song. But that bloodthirsting war weapon could not bite the flesh or break the life of that wondrous woman. So the sword broke. However, word, or I should say, God, because of some of the overlap, because of some of the blending between the older culture and the newer culture, the older religion and the newer religion, the use of word and kind of like God's plan are kind of interchangeable here. They can be used at the same time. And holy God, wise Lord and ruler of heaven, granted Beowulf good fortune in battle. And so swift as a warrior's sword stroke, Beowulf pushed away, and he spied a wondrous age-old battle sword hanging upon the wall of the sea cave. Yep. And so it came to pass in Beowulf's hand, the blood-thirsting battle blade of the giant sword slashed into her neck with such savage strength that it broke her bones and sliced through her body. So there's this magical sword inside Grendel's mother's cave that Beowulf finds and uses it to kill her. And I thought this was funny. And so it came to pass that Beowulf could search the cave floor for Grendel, lest he found the frightful fiend's lifeless, broken body. Beowulf then swung the wondrous giant sword with such an angry blow that once again it sang its greedy war song, and it separated Grendel's loathsome head from his lifeless body. Beowulf was watching the boiling blood and gore of the frightful fiend and his mighty mother feast upon the great giant sword's battle blade. So he's just hanging out in the cave, chopping up these monsters into little tiny pieces. It's a bit excessive. I mean, do you need to do that? They're dead. They're good. They're good. It's good. You can stop now. It's okay. Now, there's something interesting about this sword. Do I want to talk about the sword? No, I don't. I'll skip that one. Oh, I thought this was funny. So, Beowulf returns to Herat. He says, "Here, Hrothgar, I've slain your monsters for you." And Hrothgar says, "Oh, you are so awesome." Listen to this. This is so funny. You are now, this is Herat talking to Beowulf. "You are now a far-famed warrior, Beowulf. For a while you will be in the flower of your strength, but later the sword blade's bite or the spear shaft's flight, the flood water's frightful grip or the flaming fire's grasp, sickness or sad old age will rob you of your strength. Your bright eyes will dim and darken, and you will be beaten in battle or in soft sleep. And so death, that dreaded destiny, will take your life, for it must." Yeah, so, gosh, Beowulf, you are awesome, man. Thank you so much for killing this monster and saving all of our people. You're going to die one day. And I got all this gold and treasure for you, man. Is there anything that can get you a cake? or like some beer. I mean, one day you won't be able to drink beer because you'll be dead in the ground. But before that, I mean, you're really awesome, and we really, really appreciate what you did for us. You're going to die. Why would you tell him? What? Why would... He knows, man. You don't have to just rain on his murder parade. Anyway. Okay, chapter 5. Chapter 5. Alright, so 407. I thought this was interesting. So this is talking about the treasure hoard of the dragon, right? So we've moved on. This is later. This is 50 years later. And now we have a dragon in the mix. And the dragon has this hoard of treasure. And where does this treasure come from? Well, it comes from an old yeet. An old yeet. So listen to this. The lone warrior hid all of these treasures in the earth hall, meaning underground, or the cave. And then, once again, he spoke, but this time he unlocked his hoard of words. He had a lot to say. Earth, hold now this highborn clan wealth, for its war comrades can no longer keep it. It was within your rich body that good men first found the gleaming gold, he declared. And so now I am returning your wealth to you. That is interesting. That is, I would say, another example of the blending between the old religion and the new religion, the old culture and the new culture. He is basically saying that all of this treasure, the gold and the jewels and all the valuable things that we have, came from the earth originally. And now that we no longer have use for it, we can't keep it anymore, it must be returned to where it came from, right? That is a very environmental, almost a pantheistic way of looking at the environment, at the world. Much more so than I would say the monotheistic religions, the Christianity looks at valuables in that way, right? That's much more of an older pantheistic way of thinking about these kinds of things. There's a curse. He places a curse on it. He says, may destruction and death, that dreaded destiny, follow whoever disturbs this hoard heap of treasures, and may my curse last until the day of doom. So he places a death curse on the hoard. And then it becomes very, very Hobbit. It is very Hobbit. We have the thief who goes into the dragon's lair and steals the thing. And then we have this band of warriors who has to accompany the thief and return the thing to the dragon. It's very, very Hobbit. Nah, I'll skip that one. Here's I'm low on fire. So Beowulf is the one who leads the war party to retreat, or to return the, what is it, a goblet? Yeah, look, listen to this. Listen to this. A slave angered the highborn nobleman who was his master, and seeing that his master's heart had flooded, the slave lost his home. He searched beneath the tall stone mound on a lofty eagle's cliff, and he stumbled upon the age-old steep, secret footpath to the earth hall. He took a shining treasure cup from it, and so now he is cursed from the death curse. Listen to how Tolkien this is, how Hobbit this is. Beowulf then chose 11 trusted war comrades, the most bold of heart and strong in strife, to accompany him. The Lord of Rings... What? The Lord of Rings had learned the cause of the savage fire serpent's wrath, and so he ordered the thief to lead them to its lair. Yeah, so they go... It's... Come on. Sigurd the Volsung is also very Hobbit, very Tolkien. So Beowulf goes and he battles against the dragon. He slays the dragon, but not before the dragon bites him. The dragon is poisonous, and Beowulf dies. Before Beowulf dies, he asks to see the dragon's golden riches. I thought this was fascinating here. So, Beowulf says, "Can I please see the riches?" Dang it. Oh, here we go. Here we go. I'm sorry. Gosh dang it. Here we go. Okay. So, Beowulf says, "Can I see the riches? They must be all shiny and nice and glittering and awesome looking." So Wiglaf says, "Sure." Goes into the cave. The young warrior found drinking goblets and dishes and jars and bowls, all from a bygone age, and all now unpolished and stripped of all their decorations, for they had rested in that barrow for 1,000 winters with no one to clean them. I thought that was very interesting. You know, you see pictures of like dragons' hoards, and this cave's full of grand shining treasure, right? Who is polishing all that brass? Who is polishing all that gold? Who is putting the jewels back in place when they fall out of their setting? Nobody is. Nobody is. So all of that stuff would fall into disrepair. It would rust. It would get dirty. It would just start to deteriorate in the ground. So I thought, because they put that in the myth itself, I thought that's very, very interesting. You don't often think about that. Wiglaf strips the other 10 warriors of their wealth and land and titles. Why is this? Why is this? Remember what is the greatest sin? I don't hear you. I don't hear you saying anything. Letting your king die without helping him. And now you will suffer for it, Wiglaf says. For you and all your kinfolk must give up your birthrights and your land rights. You must give up your homes. You must give up your gifts of war garments and battle weapons. You must give up all your wealth and treasure. And you must leave Yeatland now and forever. You left your king when your battle skill could have saved him. Faced with that battle, you threw away his gift of war gear and fled. Shame on you. And then finally, Beowulf's people honors him by burying him. Let's see here. The Yeat folk built a tower-tall burial mound with worthy halls that seafarers could see from afar, and this burial became, to the seafarers, the beacon that Beowulf had been to the Yeat folk. So they built a burial mound for him. And this is Beowulf jumping into the Lake of Monsters. Yeah. This is the video that I posted on Moodle. It's a great video. This is the whole series of this Overly Sarcastic, I think is the name of this series. It's just, they're great. They're funny and they're informative, and it's a good time. It's a good time. All right. How am I doing on time? 52. You know what? I'm going to stop it right here. We're going to stop it right here. Stop it right here. Stop it right here. No more. I'll do Norse in another video. But that's it for Beowulf. That's all I have for Beowulf. So thank you, as always, and I'll see you next time.